Is it starting? Did we just go live without it starting? Did that just happen?
Maybe.
Oh, but I love the theme music. It's a great opening.
It is. Are we? I think we're live.
I
We
think
are
we're live.
live.
We've got the pool table behind us. So we're just, hello everyone. Hello. Hello. All right. Well, so we promised music for the next show. It's a brand new year. And in some ways, that cold opening is totally on brand with the cold opening of this new year. I was reading things like, I'm not really ready for a new year. I'd like a pre-approved, previously, pre-approved used car that has some sort of guarantee versus like the situation we're in. But let me just begin officially without the fabulous music that our team created, and welcome you all to the 5, 8 and a half. This is your midweek break. Thanks for welcoming us back from our break. And I'm Lisa Graves. I'm here with Nadine Smith. We've got 5 stories, 8 minutes or so each, and a chance to refuel. We slow things down to sip, reflect, and remember you are not alone. So, Nadine, Happy New Year. Although those words don't seem to go together in this particular new year, but I greet you with wishes for ultimately a happier new year than the one we're currently experiencing and then the last year. So there's that.
I have to tell you, I'm a little bit off my game because I count on that intro. Like I do a little dance to it to like psych myself up for the show. And so I feel a little bit like, I got to get the energy going. But you know what I think? I know that there are some passionate people who think that the new year is starting in the wrong place for the wrong reasons. And they make very eloquent arguments as to why it should be spring. And
I'm one of them.
I don't want to name names. There's just like people in general that you might see on your screen right now who aren't me. But I think we got to come up with a new slogan, not Happy New Year, but like our job is to make it a Happy New Year. We get to the end and then we look back and we decide whether it was a happy year. But it's good to see you, and a few things have happened since we were last on air, including I have started my new job as the president and CEO of Color of Change, America's largest online racial justice organization. And so it is literally my first week in the chair, and it is exciting. So even though we are up against incredible odds, and we start the year with this administration doing everything except releasing the Epstein files, I can't help but sit here with some optimism in my voice. So
I really appreciate that, because I was saying to Nadine before we started that I wasn't sure that I could get through this show in the circumstances we're in without cursing a blue streak basically in every single fucking sentence. But okay, but I'm gonna try to channel my energy for good. But so let's talk a little bit about color change, because Nadine and I were also talking about whistles. And I don't know if you have thoughts on that, Nadine, you'd like to share?
Well, I do. Margaret Mead talked about how the first indicator of civilization was a healed broken femur, I think, right? Because, in the animal kingdom, you break a significant limb like that, you're pretty much done for. And so the healed human femur is intended to convey that people took care of that person, made sure that they were safe, made sure that they were fed. And I've always found that imagery to be really powerful. But I also began to think that there's something before that. It's a conch shell. It is the shout of our voices. And right now it seems to be embodied by the whistle, because whistles exist almost entirely because we believe that if we blow that whistle, help will come. And if we hear that whistle, we will go and help. And what we are seeing all across the country, even in the midst of lethal violence by this government-funded invasion into blue cities, is that people keep turning out. They keep showing up for each other. They keep blowing the whistle. They keep responding to the call. And I know we're supposed to end with an upbeat note, but I know it's a pretty rough terrain we're going to traverse. But it amazes me, it inspires me, and it gives me hope that even in the midst of all of this, people keep showing up for their neighbors. And I'm thinking about the DoorDash delivery person being pursued by ICE. And if you haven't seen the video, you definitely look it up. But she runs into this woman's home in Minneapolis, and this is right at the time that ICE has murdered a woman in the street, and this woman shelters her. She's terrified. Her voice is shaking. There are armed ICE agents in the front yard, and she's telling them, "I don't want you on my property. Stop pointing your guns. We have a baby in here." But even in the midst of all of that fear, she continues to protect that woman. And eventually ICE leaves and that woman goes home. So yes, the whistle for me is, it's a symbol that says, you know what? I don't know if I'm going to use this. I don't know when I may need to, but it's important to me that I think about how I will respond. If I'm driving down the street and I see ICE has pulled someone over, it's important that I think about how I would respond if that was my house and it was a DoorDash delivery person running into my home. The more we start thinking and exercising the muscle of the moral clarity that in that moment I rehearsed what I will do. So for me right now, it's like the whistle symbolizes that I am prepared. I have weighed and measured the consequences of standing up, and I've made that decision. So it has become something of a symbol of civilization to me.
Yeah, I mean, I am in the process of, as I usually do when I'm purchasing something, surveying like which of the products to buy, like which is the loudest whistle, which is the easiest whistle, how many whistles I should have. So I've got backup whistles because that's the other part of the good Girl Scout I am, or was before I resigned from the Girl Scouts for being a little bit too peer pressury way back in the 1970s. Now they're much better. Now they're like super much cooler, much more.
Yeah, I'll tell you, the one that I recommend, having surveyed a lot of the organizations doing that, is the thin metal one. Yeah. It's small enough to put on your keychain or wear around your neck. You won't sit on it accidentally and break it like the plastic ones. And then, not for nothing, it's a little fashionable. It kind of looks nice too.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm liking that. And I was, before we jump into the deeper conversation, I just want to say, on the plane back from a meeting the other day, I read this whole book, Change the Recipe by Jose Andres. It, like you can probably see, it's dog-eared. I'm not one of, this is why I can't really check out books from the library, because of my propensity to dog-ear. That'd be wrong. I understand librarians of the world. So I bought it so that I could actually then dog-ear it. But there's so many great lessons in here from Jose Andre, and talking about the work of the World Kitchen to feed people in difficult times, and kind of what that means, kind of just part of what that means. The kicker of the book title is because you can't build a better world without breaking some eggs. And I definitely feel that. And I also feel like in the midst of these dark times, like you said, what we're seeing is, as Mr. Rogers said, the people who are helping, the people who are responding, who are not running away, who are not hiding away, like in terms of not trying to help their neighbors. And so I do feel like in the midst of these dark times, there are a lot of really amazing, inspiring things happening, and there's more to come. I think that this brutality is going to be met with an expanded movement for change, really expanding the numbers and enthusiasm, and sort of and just a recognition of the moral necessity that we counter this extremism, and that we stand united in defense of our freedoms and our families and our communities from this lawlessness. So without further ado, let's dive into that first topic, which of course is Minneapolis. Yeah. And I saw some meme. I was like, please explain to me how to continue doing my work while also contending with, what's happening in the world, instead of asking for a friend. And I was like, yeah, that's pretty much a whole lot of us right now, is how do you how do we continue to do anything sort of in the normalcy of our lives while things are being ripped apart by these this invasion of Minneapolis, St. Paul, the attacks on immigrants and citizens there, the vile claims being made by this administration, the lies being told by this administration, the assertions of absolute immunity, which is not actually a thing. It's just an onslaught. It is the very type of onslaught that George Orwell wrote about in 1984 about, the state telling you not to believe what you see, not to believe what you hear. And I am going to say something a little controversial, which is this afternoon, I think the administration released a claim that the killer, Jonathan Ross, suffered, was treated for internal bleeding. And I was like, show me the evidence, because when has this administration been truthful about anything? And also, technically, a bruise is internal bleeding, and who knows when or if he received any bruises in the course of any of the activities he was engaged in the day. Without evidence that is real and verifiable, I don't believe a word they say. Because everyone who actually is not part of the cultish, whatever Trump says or whatever the right wing says or whatever Fox claims, when you look at that video, you can see you can see Renee Nicole Good's tires turning to the right. You can see her shooter, her killer, going around the car, filming her, stopping to film her decals on the back of her car. They had her license plate. If there was a traffic incident, they could have reported her plate to the Minneapolis police for whatever, traffic violations there were. You can see him moving around the car. And you can see through his camera, which are in essence his eyes, her literally turning the wheel away from him in front of him. And so, it really is shocking. It's shocking to see yet again this administration trying to lie to us despite the evidence in front of us, and to see some percentage of the American people just touting it. And in fact, we've seen over the past couple of days moving from like this ridiculous claim that she was trying to run him over and he barely survived, as Trump suggested, to this other variant, which is really the subtext, which is in essence that she deserved to be shot because she didn't treat this disrespectful man with respect. And also, there are other revelations, like this is not one of the new $50,000 bonus recruits. This is the guy who was actually somehow responsible for the firearms training for other ICE officers, which is genuinely appalling. And he deliberately placed himself in front of that vehicle. And, we've talked about this before, but the other component of this is just the dangerousness of how they treat citizens. Like, someone comes up to your door and demands that you get out. No way. You should not have to get out of your car because some guy aggressively drives his pickup truck up to your vehicle and races to your door and tries to open it. The most natural thing in the world would be to try to leave that attacker. And so, it is horrific. It's a tragedy. And the fucking lies of this fucking administration are out fucking rageous. I held on for as long as I could, but yeah.
Not on my account. I mean, there's a couple of things that I think are really important to remember. We say this a lot on the show, and people in the comments, you all know this. They want us to be in a perpetual state of fear and trauma and panic. They want us to curl up under our desks. They want us to be overwhelmed, emotionally dysregulated. That is the whole plan. They call it flooding the zone. And it is both an attack on these fundamental values, but it's also a massive way of changing the subject. So part of it is not letting them. They always spin. And what we allow to happen, George Floyd is murdered in front of our eyes, and the stories that they begin to pump out are about George Floyd's character, his record, his past. because this is always the playbook, to flood the zone with to muddy the waters rather than stay focused on what happened. And what is happening across America is a private army of Donald Trump's is invading blue cities to terrorize people and to inflict maximum harm on Black and brown communities. And that is their job. That is what they are being paid with. I can't remember exactly the number, but I think the budget just for ICE totals that of 13 allied nations entire military budget. The mayor, I think, of Minneapolis was saying that if you combined the three largest cities in the state, they still wouldn't equal the ICE force that has been sent to invade their streets. And so, yeah, we have to not even provide any time or any energy to those lies, because then they've moved. I don't know if the Overton window is still a useful framework, but they've moved the conversation onto their territory of us sort of nibbling around the edges instead of the fundamental thing that the federal government is invading blue cities for political purpose, and they are empowering and arming people who are ideologically um, inclined to do harm to Black and brown people. That is not a bug, that is a feature. In fact, there was just a news story today about an ICE prosecutor or an ICE, someone high up in the ICE infrastructure who was revealed to be running a white supremacist website. He was suspended. They said there would be a big investigation. There wasn't. He's back on the job with his badge. And so, yes, thinking of this as a Gestapo, thinking of this as a secret police, talking about it that way, and not entertaining or giving energy to their spin, because they will lie. I mean, you have Donald Trump told America that kids were going to school as one gender, and 2 days later, coming home after presumably surgery was performed on them in the classroom. And this is such a wildly absurd thing to say, for schools where teachers can't get tax credits for replenishing, staplers and construction paper, but somehow they have secret surgeons and, surgical suites. And parents don't notice that their children are gone for anyway. It's absurd, but the absurdity itself is the weapon. The absurdity feels as though we must respond to something so wild, and instead, I think we've got to just start saying they're swinging wild because they don't want us to talk about the fact that this is the Gestapo. This is they are asking, they are demanding our papers. They are masked. Intimidation is part of the strategy, the political strategy here, and they are testing the resolve and how whether or not Americans will normalize this complete government intrusion, this complete dismantling of democracy, and we have to fight back. We have no option, because wherever it is happening, you might think it won't happen here, it won't happen to me, your citizenship will not protect you. Um, I live in Florida, a red state, and we are seeing massive ICE movements in our state. They keep targeting blue cities because it is a political operation. It's designed to instill fear, normalize the restriction of our rights, and pave the way for voter suppression. And so whatever you see happening over there will come to your door eventually. So you might as well stand up now.
Well, that's right. I mean, I really have been so appreciative around the country of so many people who have stood up, who are blowing the whistle, who are dancing. Like some dancing giraffe got seized yesterday, I think, in Minneapolis. Like, so there's no sense of humor, obviously, when it comes to fascism, authoritarianism. They don't want those images. They don't want anyone to be knowing their rights or really asserting their rights, although it is effective, not always, but it is effective to assert their rights. And I've been thinking about the fact that we had this sort of win a few weeks ago over the holidays, which was the Roberts Court saying that Trump could not send the National Guard into Chicago. And that was a victory, no doubt about it. But it is the case that the military being trained in rules of engagement in theaters of war or civilian theaters have a different set of rules that has been inculcated in general, into that service that is sort of the opposite of what is happening with ICE, that they don't have that training. Some of them would fail that training, probably have been kicked out of the military, or never would have been admitted in the first place, or wouldn't have been hired for any job involving security or a gun, or in having a physical power over other people. Not all of them, but certainly some of them seem to, at least from the record so far, have some really not be suited for this type of responsibility. And also the way this administration has acted has moved from treating this as a civilian violation if someone has overstayed their visa or is not present with papers in the United States, into a quasi-criminal or effectively criminal activity where they're seizing people, grabbing them, handcuffing them, treating them as if they have authority to hold people, including citizens and immigrants, in ways that are inconsistent with how that power has been contained. And that's not to say that it's been well contained over the years. We certainly saw Democratic presidents trying to basically out-tough the Republicans in terms of their enforcement and workplace raids. Mm-hmm. But the level of brutality that we have seen with this expanded force that this Republican Congress has helped fund, or at least move forward with funds that are not just also exceeding other countries, but basically I read, and I'll have to get back to you with the verification, but I read that ICE has more funding than the US Marines, which is just jaw-dropping. So, we have a lot of work cut out for us in the months ahead, the weeks ahead, in terms of defending civil liberties, defending our rights, standing in unity, growing the number of people who oppose this. And I think that when you look at, the polling overall, most people do not support this extremism. But unfortunately, there are some people who are hardline authoritarians who are fully on board with this, and more so, who spout really vindictive, nasty junk. And some of them may well be people who dare to have a Gadsden flag, who dare to have the "Don't Tread on Me" flag, who claim that they needed to stockpile weapons to prevent against government abuse. And yet, where are they? Where is the NRA in this onslaught on American civil liberties and American cities? It's all because, in fact, it's been a lie, that supposed devotion to protecting against government tyranny. They're nowhere to be seen when we're actually facing these strong arm tactics. They're not there, because someone did a commentary the other day, which I think is worth considering, which is, there's the Gestapo analogy, but there's also the slave catcher analogy in terms of our US history and the deployment of forces, claiming to have the power to say, "Where's your papers?" and seize people based on their identity, and to do so brutally in American history.
Yeah. Well, here's a pop quiz for everyone listening. Type in the comments, if you can, Renee Good's last words to this ICE agent and his last words to her. Let's keep going. Let's keep going.
All right. Well, we're going to move on to Venezuela as we talk about that. And I do think, there's more, these terrible, terrible incidents are just yet another wake-up call for people to join in our common humanity, in our devotion to each other, as you were pointing out, Nadine, that this is these are times where we need to unify. We need to expand our networks and not retract away from the circumstances that we're seeing. And sometimes it's hard to know what to do, like Venezuela. Who knew? Clearly some people knew. Purportedly, the oil companies knew before Congress knew. And yet, here we are with Trump toppling the head of a sovereign state on the basis of lies and deception. Not that Maduro was a great guy. There were reasonable allegations that he stayed in power despite losing an election. Who does that sound like? Whose wish list was that in terms of Trump? But we go from the first set of activities in the U.S. in terms of the deployment of DHS to target Venezuelans in particular, to send them to El Salvador. We have this second wave of Hegseth, the literally least qualified man to ever lead the Defense Department, using the power of the Defense Department to attack boats, fishing boats, or small craft off the coast of Venezuela on the pretense that it was a necessary sort of military activity in response to the supposed war with Venezuela, which we were not in, and was in fact part of the basis of Trump asserting that he could just whisk people out of the country because supposedly he had the power in case of, quote, invasion to seize aliens, to seize people who are not Americans and remove them from the country. So we had the second round, which was the attacking of these small craft. Then we had the third round, which was killing people who survived the initial attacks, which many people, and myself included, consider to be a war crime, to kill sailors who are surviving an attack and who pose no threat to the United States military, to the United States. Then we have a takeover of Venezuela, supposedly because of the role of Maduro in drug running, when in fact that's not really what he was doing. There are other issues. At the same time as Trump has pardoned someone who was actually convicted for real in a federal court with guilt beyond a reasonable doubt of dumping more than 400 tons of cocaine in the United States. That guy gets a pardon. Then you have immediately the turn to this notion that this was our oil. It's not our oil, actually. There was a long-setting set of agreements, international agreements, and litigation over the nationalization of the oil resources in Venezuela. It wasn't our oil. But to the extent that there were disagreements that were commercial disagreements, those were resolved well before now. There's Trump saying that he basically told the oil companies first, that he was going to decide who got what contract. And even a briefing last week with the Senate, in which Chris Murphy came out of that briefing saying this is, quote, insane, because they have no plan. There's no real plan except for purportedly a plan to have Trump decide who gets the spoils, which company is kissing his ass at this moment in order to get a contract. And then the money's going where? Into some, secret banks outside the country. Like, it is just corruption and violation of international law, violation of U.S. norms, activity that makes us, the American people, less safe through these efforts. It is just, I think the technical term is, it's a fucking shit show. I know, here I am again, cursing again, but it is a shit show. It is a dumpster fire, but on a global scale, where, Trump thinks that he's a colonial leader. He has the frigging audacity to claim that he has a right to appoint Marco Rubio the viceroy of Venezuela. There's no viceroys in the United States, just like there's no fucking kings in the United States. We don't have viceroys. Viceroys are things that a king, a omnipotent ruler of England or Queen of England, appoints to govern the colony of India. This is not the U.S. in the modern era. Not that we were not active participants in colonialism for a significant part of U.S. history, and colonialism and interventionism that has been disastrous, like the CIA's covert activities in Tehran to overtake the government there when the people of Iran were seeking a democratic governance. But the United States and Britain, with their oil interests, did not want that, and basically installed and propped up the Shah of Iran, who was deeply repressive. This is just one of many examples, deeply repressive. And that repression helped fuel the growth of fundamentalism, religious fundamentalism in that country that we're now seeing some resistance to. And yet, even in the midst of that, Trump is somehow threatening to send troops into Iran. Another crazy notion. We'll come back to that. But, really, since the Nixon administration, since just the horrifying actions of our government to topple Salvador Allende and put up and support the dictator Pinochet, who murdered thousands of Chileans over copper mines, over extraction, which we're going to get to on Greenland and more beyond Venezuela. And there were certainly actions by Reagan. So I don't want to just give, and then there was Iraq, and then there was Iraq again, and Bush, going in and trying to blame Iraq for 9/11, which was, I think, again, the technical term is bullshit. But I still believe that in the last few decades, in general, the United States has not acted as though it is the rightful king or emperor of South and Central America, with some, certainly some exceptions. So you're going to disabuse me of this. But anyway, as I try to make my case, I'm reminded at every turn with the reality.
You were debating yourself, because even if you said it, I could see the ground just fall out from underneath you. And I was waiting for United Fruit to enter the conversation. But
that too.
We have to stop talking about Trump as though he's governing. He is not. He is a mobster, and he uses whatever tool is helpful in the execution of his scams, his grift. Sure, he's a Christian. Why not? I can sell Bibles. Yeah, let's shove a constitution in there too. Make it gold. You know what I mean? He is whatever, I'm the guy who's going to stop the wars. Remember? We're tired of wars. I'm ending all the wars. And I ended 6 wars in one day and started 8 wars in one afternoon. And so, you have to, once you go, okay, what would a mobster do to extract the maximum amount from his mark? What would he do? So Trump isn't literally, wiring Venezuela money into his personal account, but he's structuring this intervention so that oil majors, hedge funds, politically connected investors, stand to gain. And so, you mentioned it. Oil companies knew about this before Congress. And so, they're being invited to pour tens of billions into rebuilding Venezuela's oil fields, and Trump's openly promising that they will be reimbursed from us through revenue. That is just, they are signaling the extraction of public money into private pockets. And there are firms that are already positioned in Venezuela, like Chevron, Gulf Coast refiners are built around Venezuela's heavy crude, are seen as the leading beneficiaries, with expectations of even higher production and access to discounted oils. And then you have, the people in Trump's circle, major investors and funds holding Venezuelan debt and arbitration claims, Elliott Investment Management, run by a big Trump donor, Paul Singer. They're all poised to profit from this. And so these are the same oil executives that Trump pressed, to commit at least, I don't know how many of their logos are going to be on the ballroom.
Yeah.
But, there is no shakedown that, Trump will not monetize. And of course, by promising cheap Venezuelan barrels and talking about, reimbursements, he is, he works like a dirty cop. You get a little dirty, I'm dirty, you got to be dirty to be around me. And that circle grows and grows. And now you have Bannon in a room of these guys saying, hey, look, we go down in the midterms and a bunch of people in this room are going to jail, starting with me. Yeah. This is how criminals in a criminal enterprise think and speak to each other. And so we have to stop framing this as incompetent governance, because governance isn't the role, isn't even the point. It is about putting their stooges in place, dismantling the watchdog, and flooding the zone, so we are constantly our heads on a swivel. What's next? What's going to happen next? Well, they continue to just load up their pockets. And one of the things about the Maduro conversation is, remember, he did not, Maduro's government is a criminal enterprise too, and he just removed one player.
Yeah.
He didn't seek to install the person who was considered the actual duly elected person. In fact, he kind of went from not knowing who she was to a rant about how she was, absolutely unqualified. But he left the criminal infrastructure in place.
Yeah.
And one of the things Maduro has is a whole lot of money stashed in crypto accounts. And I would say to anyone, pay attention. It's always follow the money. But it will be interesting to see what happens to those wallets that the Maduro mobsters control.
Yeah, mobsters versus mobsters and mobsters. It really, I really appreciate your description of that, Nadine. And that brings us to our special guest to talk about the next component of grift, destabilizing our world.
The shakedown.
The next form of shakedown that seems to be where we seem to be in the midst of this, with Germany and France sending troops to Greenland to try to protect from the U.S. doing the same or something similar there. So without further ado, we're going to bring on our basically executive producer, the founder, co-founder of the 5-8, and the person who invited both of us, along with Stephanie, to launch this 5-8.5. Welcome to the show, Greg Olear.
Hey guys, how's it going?
It is good.
Everybody's happy? Everybody's good?
Yeah.
No.
I was going to say Happy New Year, but I think I might trigger you.
No, it's great show so far. I love the swearing, Lisa. I think you should keep it. I think it's reflective of how we all feel. And Nadine, I think your frame of him as a mobster is obviously correct. And also, it's not, as you say, it's not incompetent governance. It's very competent plundering. That's what it is. That's exactly what it is. And to view it in any other way is madness. And that's the first thing to talk about with this Greenland business. The thing that drives me, I think, more nuts than anything is Trump will say something like, we're going to go take Greenland, which is batshit on many levels. And the New York Times, the Washington Post, they're all like, well, a new strategy emerges from the. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Right.
I as bad as these newspapers were during World War II, I mean, what would they say? Like, well, the Poles can't govern themselves, so I mean, Hitler creates a dynamic new look for Polish sovereignty. Like what? It's batshit. It's madness. The media is going along with it, trying desperately to frame this guy and to paint this guy as some sort of actual statesman. He is not a statesman. He is not a president. He's not even the lawful president. He's a fucking mobster and he's a Kremlin asset. He's those two things combined. There's a lot of overlap there. But that's what he is. And everybody's just sort of sleepwalking through this thing. It's even the people that are supposed to be on our side are not nearly calling him out as much as they should. And forget about the Republicans in Congress, all of them, just useless people, just useless.
I mean, the fact that they caved on having any trim back on Venezuela. Let me just be clear. When I heard that Josh Hawley was part of the gang who was supposedly going to stand up to Trump, I thought, my terminology is he doesn't have the memories for the job, quite frankly, because I refuse to follow the typical discussion of balls, quite frankly. In this scenario, I think women have a lot of guts, and Josh has basically none of them. And of course he was going to cave. He's ambitious. He wants the blessing of the right wing. He's sort of trying to posture things. I mean, but it would have been nice if Republicans actually stood up for the United States and are like the rules, rather than just continuing to be a supplicant to Trump's mobsterism. But no, of course. And I think that the other through line is just the culture of extraction. Just the extraction is the through line. It is the attack on windmills, because you just can't use wind that's free. You have to put the profit motive in there no matter what, even if it's killing the planet. You have to. Everything is about extraction, getting the assets, or the sour crude out of Venezuela, which, the Cokes are really expert at refining, but is actually hard oil a difficult oil to refine. And even then, it's not as though the oil companies are clamoring for yet more oil to reduce the profits that they're making. And then you have Greenland, which has assets, rare earth assets that, I think that's part of what Trump is trying to dominate, is trying to get control of those resources for extraction. And I'm reminded that I think it might have been, good Lord, like 13 years ago, that The Economist, which had not been really on the bandwagon of talking about climate change, finally had a full issue of The Economist about climate change. And lo and behold, the companies that were sort of bankrolling the American Petroleum Institute, bankrolling the American Legislative Exchange Council, ALEC, and Koch Industries, as those entities were peddling attacks on addressing climate change, trying to stop every effort at mitigation. Lo and behold, in The Economist was a big description on how these oil companies were super excited to get mineral rights just off the coast all around Canada as the ice was melting, and they would have new routes for oil and new opportunities to drill or to mine. And here we are, 12, 13 years later, and that's the game. As our planet gets warmer and warmer, and as the ice sheet on Greenland melts and melts due to the human-caused climate change, which Trump, of course, denies because nothing's real to him that is actually real for the world. He and the plunderers are eager to get their hands on booty. I'm going to say booty, on booty that isn't theirs. They're like pirates. They want that stuff. They want to get richer and richer and richer at our expense, and at the expense of causing total chaos in the world by alienating the allies that Trump is already busy alienating in accordance with with Putin's, grand vision for destroying NATO. Here we are, literally in some sort of, almost gun-to-gun situation right now with Europe over Greenland, which we have no business being involved in at all.
Which should have been pointed out by every newspaper screaming and yelling. Like Trump saying, I intend to buy Greenland should have no more weight than me saying I intend to buy Greenland. Like, it's not fucking for sale, dumb it. Not everything has a price. Not everything is for sale.
They believe it does. They very much believe it does.
They do. And it's not even Trump that wants the stuff or the oil companies. It's Musk and Vance, because there's some sort of thing in there that he needs. I think it's called, I wrote it down. It's called Dumbfuckium, I think it's called. That's the name of the mineral. I'm not really sure. I'm not a chemical guy.
Now I have corrupted you, Greg.
Oh, please no.
This is how we found him. I won't. Well,
but
go ahead, Greg.
No, because I have a whole thing. So you go.
Well, I just wanted to say, I want to put a big highlighter under the fact that America has always been a colonial power. It has always been imperialistic. It has always asserted its will and its dominance in these ways. It used to, it has done it militarily, but it's also just done it economically. It's done it through proxies of corporations. I mean, I made quick reference to United Fruit, but we have a long history of killing, replacing, laying claim to being liberators when really it was all just in service to monopolistic corporations. And I think it is really important because right now, like in Florida, there's another bill that's been introduced about how you cannot teach in school anything that is counter to the free enterprise system and American way of life. And you go, you know what? Listen, entrepreneurial capitalism, build a better mousetrap. The world beats a path to your door. That sounds lovely. Both my parents ran small businesses. But this is not, when Peter Thiel travels, he says openly, he's not a capitalist, he's a monopolist. And he says, you don't want capitalism. You don't want to compete. You want to dominate. And so I say all of this just to say, we are going to have to look ourselves, our country, our history in the eye and stop being shocked that America is doing what America has always done. And that this, in some ways, Trump is just the crystallization of all of that, unvarnished, unmythologized. It's just in its purest form and behaving, in ways that should not surprise us. But at the same time, those same stories tell us that when we call things what they are and we name them and we organize around them, we actually can stop robber barons and we can topple plunder economy mobsters. We can, but the only way through it is to actually, like, if we think we're fixing a broken government, then we put our energy into fixing, oh, you should have picked a better person for that role. But then we don't put our attention on the thing that's actually unfolding. This is absolutely plunder, and we got to treat it that way.
Yeah, it's plunder, but it's worse than that. And I agree about the United States has been less imperialistic outright than most, certainly a lot of the countries in Europe historically. But all that's not important right now. I think the main thing that matters right now, and what I want everybody to understand, is how colossally, catastrophically fucked everybody in the United States will be if Trump moves troops into Greenland. I mean, it seems like kind of a silly thing, like, let's invade Greenland, like the Benny Hill music is playing or whatever. It will trigger NATO Article 5, which means all of the countries of Europe that are in NATO will rush to NATO's defense, including Canada, by the way. It'll put us on the precipice of war with our allies. And also, by the way, at war with ourselves, because when Article 5 is triggered, the United States is also, contractually obligated to come to the defense of the invading force. And if the invading force is the United States, I would argue we still have to do it. So what that means is people in the military are going to either follow illegal orders or they're not. And the ones that don't follow the illegal orders are going to have to jump to the defense of NATO. So basically what I'm saying is what's going to happen is there's going to be a civil war in the country. That's what's going to happen if we bring troops into Greenland. It's that serious. In addition to, Malcolm Nance had a great tweet the other day listing all of the things that would be so fucked by this, including all of the shipping routes and the military jets that need refueling. We'd get kicked out of Europe, the entire continent of Europe, which is beyond stupid from a national security standpoint. I mean, everything is beyond stupid. And there is nothing that Trump could do that would be more subservient to Vladimir Putin than this. He could fly to Moscow, go to the Kremlin, get down on his knees and lick the man's boots, and it still wouldn't be as subservient as this. The main beneficiary of us going to Greenland is Elon Musk, maybe with his dumb fuckium or whatever. But mostly it's Putin, because NATO would be destroyed. All of the energy in Europe would be wasted away fighting amongst ourselves, and Ukraine would be taken by the Russians. Yeah. That's what's going to happen if this happens. So everything that we have in our power to press against this must be pressed against it. And if it happens, the country's over. I believe that the country is over. And that if we're going to go to war with Europe, New York State has to be like, now we're out. And New Jersey has to be like, we're out. And California has to be like, we're out. Let Alabama go to war with Europe. We're going to join the European Union. Fuck you. As Trump so eloquently put it today.
Yeah.
Fuck you.
In the Ford thing. But, I do think, and I think we've talked about this, but not on this show, but, there's another component of the lack, like there's the whole, how this serves Putin, which is so real, given everything we know about Trump and Putin, despite the denials. But there's another component of it that is just so surreal, because it's like some idiot is trying to reenact 1984 or something, but in a ham-handed way to create like three terrains. And then I have to go back and reread 1984 again.
Influence.
Right. But this idea of like perpetual war, then to basically support not having elections, to support not having a viable economic policy, making everyone like it is. There's a component of this that is some really shitty Cliff Notes version of George Orwell's 1984. And I want
1985. It's called.
Oh, no, wait, it's 1984, isn't it?
No. The shitty version would be called 1985.
Oh, okay. I was like, oh no. Yes, the shitty version is called 2025. No, 2026. Yeah, I mean, it really is just absurd, just absurd. Also, Sinclair Lewis's great book, which I've had for many, many years now, decades now, It Can't Happen Here, while it's happening here. It is really outrageous. Greg, will you stay on as we're coming up to the top of the hour? We have a bit more, and will you stay on just to help close it out?
I will if you want me to, but I'm going to be quiet now. I've said enough. I've said too much.
No, I'm going to try to provoke you at some point. I do just want to say this. There's something in here that Greenland is the Archduke Ferdinand of
yes.
pig war, right?
Oh God, you're totally right. Totally right. So, yes.
Yeah.
All right. Lead us forward, Lisa Graves.
Yes. So we have a fourth topic, which is about the economy. And I think we're going to push that fifth topic of the Roberts Court, which is perennial, into the next show next week, because there's more and more and more happening there. But we wanted to talk about, just have a bit of a conversation about what happened at Ford. The fact that now Trump is cursing like me, although I'm pretty sure we're already always cursed. I'm just doing it tonight. But, so just to set this up, as many of you may have seen, Trump was at Ford and someone called out that, that he's basically hiding, protecting pedophiles. And he basically shouted back, "Fuck you," and flipped the person off. And then that guy got suspended basically by Ford later and now has a GoFundMe page. But Pete Buttigieg said, Trump saying "fuck you" to Ford workers was right on brand, given his policies overall. I thought that was really apropos. But also, I'm pretty sure we have not had any president behave that way. Not that this is some line of decorum that we wouldn't expect Trump to completely leap over. And obviously, there was also Vice President Dick Cheney, who said to my boss on the floor of the Senate, Senator Leahy, when we were blocking George W. Bush judicial nominees, a few of the most extreme, including, by the way, pretty sure Brett Kavanaugh was in that list back then. At the time of this statement, Dick Cheney told my boss on the floor of the Senate to go fuck himself. And that was, widely reported as a real breach of decorum. But, decorum is the least of it when it comes to Trump and the mobster mentality that we have going on. But this, that speech at Ford, his actions at Ford, the other statements he's made about the Affordable Care Act and the premiums going up, his lack of regard for the whole fake issue, real issue for the American people, fake issue from his standpoint in terms of the 2024 election, claiming that he gave a damn about the price of eggs or groceries, when now groceries are continuing to be at a high point, in fact, higher than they've been, before now. And so you have this whole array of actions. And then on top of it, you have the Trump administration going after Jerome Powell as a purported criminal for building cost overruns, while Trump himself is in the middle of erecting is the wrong word, imposing on us this
dysfunctionally erecting.
That no one asked for, that he had no permission to do, that he had no money to pursue, and has been using as part of this shakedown to get companies to fund his ballroom, which went from 200 to 300 to 400 million in expense, which, let me just say, I'm concerned about that ballroom on multiple levels, including the level which is, if I had a tenant that knocked down a wall in the house they were renting from me and they were building a ballroom or just an addition, I'd be like, you are fucking evicted, because that is not your building. You do not own it. And Trump is acting like he's never leaving. Doesn't matter what happens in 2026 in the midterms. Doesn't matter what happens in 2028. The guy is doing a renovation that could not possibly be completed before the end of his lawful term of presidency. And yet that's what he is concerned about. That's what he's tweeting about, the marble, at the Kennedy Center, or the designs for his, shitty ballroom, grifting ballroom, and not actually any concern for what's happening in real people's lives with the spike in the prices of groceries, every week as people are trying to feed their families, and the insane, obscene spike in the cost of insurance under the ACA that would go forward if Trump does not agree with the House moving forward on trying to mitigate the spike in ACA premiums. So over to you, Nadine and Greg. That's my rant. I'm standing by it.
Thank you, Lisa. I'm standing here today in Florida. Actually, I'll tell you, it does my heart so much good. You know that picture? I don't know how real it is, but this picture that's floated for a long, long time. And you see these people giving, the Nazi salute, but there's one guy who hasn't raised his arm, and everyone's like, "Be that guy." That's how I felt during the Ford. If anything, the guy was generous. He simply said he was, or you know what? There's a dispute whether he was saying Trump was protecting pedophiles, or whether he was yelling at a Secret Service member, telling that guy he was protecting a pedophile. Anyway, but there's precedent in this. Julie Briskman, remember, who famously flipped off the Trump. Yeah. She was a cyclist, and I can't remember. She was a
great photo.
Yeah, it was back in 2017, and so she flips off his motorcade while riding her bike. It was actually, and I mean this sincerely, a beautifully composed photograph. Like, it had all of the elements. It had a Tiananmen Square-like virality as well, and her gesture sort of became this powerful symbol. And she lost her job. She was fired because of it. And but plot twist, she ran and won a seat on the Loudoun County Board of Supervisors in Virginia as a Democrat, and sort of parlayed that notoriety. And so who knows? We really have to find out who TJ Sabula is, the 40-year-old auto worker, and see what ambitions he may have. Remember that name. He may be, the next vice president of the United States. There's no telling. And so I think if you're ambitious, flipping off yelling and standing up in ways that are unexpected might be your best path forward.
Yeah. Wow. All right. Well, we are at the 3-minute mark at the top of the hour. Should we?
I know that in the world turned upside down, we kind of started with the glass half full, but actually there is some good news. I mean, beyond great people with whistles and with courage, with their voices trembling, still doing the right thing, there is more polling showing that not only does Trump continue to decline, his approval is underwater and continuing to weaken. One of the things that they've sort of held on to is this idea that that he might be losing support, but he was galvanizing young men, that it was breaking the prevailing trend. But recent polling shows that, overall his approval's like in the 40s, with disapproval consistently higher than approval, that long-term trackers show that his net approval is well into the negative territory, surpassing, especially compared to other presidents. But among young men, approval of Trump among young men is even lower. It's like 32%. Young women, 26%. And that cuts across. And so, why are these young people who were being lauded by MAGA as, he had awakened their latent patriotism, but there's, basically widespread skepticism and distrust, economic anxiety. So when we talk about affordability and we talk about corruption together, young people are seeing that play out. And he's broken all of those promises. And I think they see very clearly that his allegiance is not to them, not to their future, but to his own self-preservation and lining his pockets and making sure that his fellow grifters stay out of jail. That's the only thing motivating him. So people are waking up. So perhaps it may not start as a happy new year, but it's up to us to make it a happy new year. So there we are. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, the glass half full.
Your glass.
I'm sorry about the opening thing.
No, this is great. Glass half full. We toast you all.
Yes, indeed. Well, thank you for joining us at the 5, 8 and a half. I'm Nadine Smith alongside Lisa Graves and our wonderful guest, Greg Olear, who you will get a chance once again to see on Friday on the OG, the 5/8. We hope to see you there. And stay brave and look out for each other. Have a great night.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Greg. Thanks, Nadine.
Thanks for having me, guys. It's great to see you.
Bye-bye.